live from Miami Beach in Southeast Florida. This is CFI Bootcamp with the Power Hour. Welcome.
Well, hello. We're not in Southeast Florida. We're not in Miami Beach. We're not live from there. We're live from Palo Alto, California, San Francisco Bay Area, which is about 40 miles, not quite, 30 miles south, 25 miles south of San Francisco, and about 15 miles south, 18 miles south of San Francisco International. We're live from the class. So we have been starting here at 8 a.m. every day, so I can stay on East Coast time. Right? So no, it's because we have this feature, and I want to show you guys from the outside. If you look outside, you see fog. That's advection fog. And we have that feature here in the summertime until about 11 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 10. So we can't fly in the morning. So our opportunities to fly will be after the class. And the class ends at about 3. And so then flights can go out if they need to. Down in the other side in Miami, we have thunderstorms in the afternoon. So we start the class at 11 there to 6, and we do flights from 7 until 11 because we don't have that feature. Now in the wintertime, here in the Bay Area, we won't have fog. So another month or so, it'll be clear there won't be any more advection fog. So that's kind of the way that goes. So anyway, I'll give you some announcements here in a minute, but the whole idea was to show you the apps that we're going to use, that we do use at CFI Bootcamp. The masks make us look better. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, the masks. And I noticed you guys at home aren't wearing masks. I don't understand why you're not with the program here. So anyway, there's that. That's funny. Gary Weaver says that we look better wearing masks. I'm sure that's the case. So I'm going to begin to show you some of the apps that we use and the ones you'll want to have. And the reason I want to do that is, well, there's a bunch of reasons, but the first reason is because you can spend an enormous amount of time going out to the App Store and downloading all these apps and finding they're a complete waste of time, right? Or they do something that you didn't anticipate, or it doesn't really do that. And so over the period of many years, we have vetted out the ones that we use, and we use them in the class. And we use them for just about everything. So let me move on to start that here. So give it just a second. Okay, so now we should see the iPad. You also see this game I'm addicted to, but I can't seem to stop playing that game. But I will. I'm gonna go cold turkey on it tonight. So that's the end of that. I'm gonna kill that thing. Because I like to win $1 million of something, right? So there you go. All right, so we keep all of our apps in this folder over here, which is CFI class. And we can step through some of them. Some of them we just talk about, and others I can show you how they work, because I think that might be helpful. So the other things you can do is I will prepare a document that we send to you after the power hour. And it will have the list of the apps that I'm going to tell you about. But in case I forget, or in case I get lazy and just don't do it, you can take a screenshot. Just take your camera out and take a picture of the screen, so you can at least have the logos up there, the stuff that we use. Okay, so that be kind of a fair warning to you. I think it'll be all right. And let's go ahead and do that. So now I'm going to open up the first. I'll give you a tour first. So for PDF readers, I usually use Adobe Acrobat, or you can use Goodreader. And Goodreader is a bit better PDF management. There's annotation tools in there and some other things. That's kind of handy to have, right? So you might want to look at Goodreader. Although I will also talk about ForeFlight as well, and how you can use ForeFlight for a lot of that same stuff. The next thing over you see in the top is CFI. And that's those with that logo. It's called Prepware, and Prepware is made by ASA, and ASA is who we typically use for the Prepware, and this is just for their knowledge test, right? These are like $10 apps, and if I just open it for a second, you can choose to study or take a test at the bottom. But if you look, you can take right there it's in highlight right here in the middle. There's CFI Airplane, so that's the one you would take. You also have to take the FOI, and it's in here. So there's also sport instructor, ground instructor, fundamentals of instructing. So all those things are in one app, right? And this is like about $10. And when you take it, if you start it just for the heck of it, you can pick what you want to study. So I don't know, pick that. And then you get, there's the question, and then some answer. And then there's the explanation at the bottom. So it's simple. And then if there's figures involved, then the figures will be in there. So if I can step through, see if there's a figure. Exit quiz, pick something where I know there's a figure. Like there, 42. So then there's a button over here to the top that's figures, and you can pull the figure up, all right? So everything's in there that you need for about $10, right? If you're just stepping through questions. So that's kind of okay. So let me exit here. And the next one over is something called Ride Ready. It's the third one over on the top right. And that one, I'm going to turn on this annotation tool so I can kind of show you as we go. It's this. And Ride Ready is made by Dauntless Software. And this is around $50, 45, something like that. I know for those of you at home, that's just like the end of the world. Oh my God, it's $50. Oh, Jesus Christ. But you'll spend that. I see you spend that in the tie down with your head down in the checklist, right? I've seen you do that many times. So anyway, but Dauntless, what they have is they've assembled what they consider oral questions from oral exams, right, all around, and they categorize those into and there's for CFI, for instrument, for whatever you're studying for. I'm not going to check for updates because it will take a while. And so then we can the test we're going to take is flight instructor, or the questions from single engine. And then you can also customize the airplane down there at the bottom. You see customize aircraft. You can, instead of a 150, you can put up an arrow and it would ask you systems questions related to that airplane, right? And then you can choose how you want to cycle through the questions. So I just cycle through here. You can pick the ones that you want to be asked about. For example, maybe, I don't know, aerodynamics, something like that. There's 106 questions in there. Maybe that's all I want to do, so that's the only thing that's ticked. And then you get the question, right? How are wingtip vortices formed? And then the next button will show us the answer. And then there'll be an explanation. So washout, what is that? So it's always good to have a fair amount or a livery of good questions, so you can quiz yourself, right, and see what the answers are. So that's what we use Ride Ready for. So I think that's probably all I want to show you about that. That's all I probably need to show about it, right? The next one over is the GTN trainer. That's Garmin's trainer for the 650, 750 series. So you can say single engine, piston, start. And then what we'll get is a fully functional trainer here. And it has a simulator in there as well. It's cheap little simulator if you want to, and this is fully functional. So the databases all show up. You can say, okay, I want to do a flight plan. I want to navigate. You can put points in there, just like the touch screen that you would use. And it's a good way to demonstrate that. It's $25, I think. Okay, just as a about, right? But that thing, again, when you look at something like this, I don't look at this as something that's going to cost me money. I'm going to make money by being able to train people on the ground with this, right? So I don't look at it as an expense that I'm not going to be able to recover. So there's that. This is the G1000 PFD, and you also can make it into an MFD or get the MFD version. And this is made by a local company here in Palo Alto. And it's a full function version of a G1000. Here's the controls, to give you some overview of the controls, but here's the thing. And this is a functional thing. If you press the PFD buttons at the bottom, it will have all the stuff that you'd expect to see there, right? And also you can make it fly. If I take my finger and just kind of make it go along that, when I get up the flying speed, then I can pitch down, turn, that kind of thing, right? So now I'm going to let it stall, right? Okay. Symbionic, it's made by, right? So that's one. So it's good as a ground trainer. This is Sporty Z6B, which they've been working on for a long time and updating, and that's an electronic version. This is not good for if you want to take a knowledge test, because you can't take an iPad or an iPhone into a knowledge test, but it's a overall good thing to have. Right, so you can do calculations based, if you look on the left-hand side, it kind of give you an idea of, you can do heading and ground speed, crosswind, headwind, you can do, over here you can do fuel required, so you can get everything you'd ever want to do is there, right? So that's not a bad tool to have. Then the next one to that is the private pilot prepware. I won't show you that because it's the same as the slides, just has the private pilot questions in it. And Ride Ready for Private Pilot, Fried Dauntless, is there too. So you can use that for your private pilot students, right? And that, again, you can open that and you can, they're oral questions. They're oral questions, right? The next one down is Remote Pilot, and that's for the drone stuff in the same way. So no need to open that. For those of you working on instrument stuff, or you're going to do your double I first, or you're going to attend our instrument class tomorrow, not tomorrow, on Monday, or next month, then we use this in the class. It's called the Hold Trainer. These apps are made by, these particular ones I'll show you are made by Pilots Cafe. And Pilots Cafe, about $10, maybe less than that, makes some really good tools. And they also have for IFR, on their website, they have like a 10-page document, which basically covers most of what you need to know for an IFR check ride. It's actually pretty good. And so let's look at it. It's called Hold Trainer. We can just practice, or you can learn a little bit. So hold northeast over the OMM VOR on the 022 radial with left turn. So the 022 radial is right about here. So if we go into that, into the VOR left turns, that's going to be a teardrop entry, right? Teardrop. And then you can turn the visualize thing on, this button here, and you can actually see it on the heading indicator. So you can step through those so the student can get the entries right? So that's not a bad. It also has bearings. So if you're using a bearing pointer or an ADF, you could also do the same thing. You also look at a plan view, which would be a north up view. You can either do north up, or over here you could do track up and see what that looks like. So it's very handy to give the student practice and see if they've got it right. And also it avoids you drawing a bunch of shit all the time on the board, saves time. All right, so we can go back and we're done with that. The next thing we use is something called props and governors. So we would do this for complex or high performance training, right? And let's take a look at that, this one. So then we can pick either a single engine or multi-engine airplane. So I'll pick the single engine one in the middle. So it gives you some number of page introduction into how these things work, right? Which is okay, something, but let's step through and just sort of step through it for a second. So the artwork is pretty good, pretty decent in it. And then we'll come to a particular place. That's how this stuff works. And we'll also, on some of these things you can actually play with. So like this one, we can change the spring tension. Next. And so this is the description. And then at the very end of it, you have a chance to play with it. So there's the manifold pressure at the bottom left and the RPM. So if I move up the throttle lever, then you'll see that the manifold pressure starts increasing, and you'll see, depending on the speed I have selected, if I pull down the prop, you'll see what happens inside the governor system. Or if I increase the manifold pressure or decrease it, you can see what happens. So you can play around with this. That's not a bad gig there. Yeah. So it's interesting because you have a chance to see how it really works and explain it while it's in motion. Okay, so that's one. The next one we have over is this is for a multi-engine airplane made by the same company. And the one is electrical system. All these three are made by the same company. So let's look at that one just for a second. So we can put systems on the bottom, and we can pick the landing gear system. And what is it that I want to do?
Looks like there's someone waiting to get in.
Oh, someone else? Nicholas? Oh, it's Ike. Ike is in Germany. He attended one of our, okay, he's going. Okay. And so here's the landing gear system, right? And so you can put up or down the gear, and you can see how the lines are pressurized. And also pull the emergency part there. So you can, this is for a Seminole, right? All right, so let's leave this.
You get other aircraft for that as well?
Well, we have one for the 172, but it's only for the electrical system currently.
Oh,
Which that's the one, it's right down here in the bottom left, right here, right there. So that one we use for the electrical system. It's got a few bugs in it, but in general it works pretty well. So here's the electrical system for a either G1000 or a S model 172. And so you can see on the left-hand side there's a master switch, and if I turn it on the battery side, you can see what the bus voltage and current might look like on the right-hand side, see what buses are energized. And then I can turn on the alternator, which should do nothing right here. And I can start the engine. There's a key switch on the left, so I can do that. And once that gets going, then you can start seeing the alternator is now on. If you see the system voltage and bus over there, then I can turn on avionics switches and that. This does is a G1000 because at the top there's the standby battery. So you can do that. Okay, so anyway, that's one of the ones we use. You can also have an alternator failure at the top right here. There's a section. I can press that button. If I do that, then it'll kill the alternator. It starts killing it now, and you can then begin to see what happens. So you can explain the students, right? So this isn't a bad. These are all kind of good things, right? Good tools to have. So as we step through more of these, and a couple of them again, I'm going to look in a little more detail, but. Let me see if I don't have. Oh, yes, I do. Okay. Nav trainer, which is one of my favorites. It's the one we're going to look at now. And I want to show it to you in a little bit more detail because one of the struggles people have currently is with VOR navigation. They just want to use GPS all the time, which is okay until GPS doesn't work. And it does fail sometimes. So, and when it does, you don't really have any control over it. Like China Lake up here is jamming. They'll send on a NOTAM. It'll be 400 miles of jamming, right? 400 miles. So you don't know. Maybe they decide to give you enough notice, maybe not. I've been in Mexico and had it not work, right? So you never fly with one form of navigation, right? Make sure it's at least two. That doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be always dead reckoning, or it can be anything, but just two forms of navigation. So anyway, let's pick that because I think it's really easy to use. A lot of these navigation trainers you find on the Google store, Play Store or the Apple Store are complicated, difficult to figure out how to get them to use. And also you have to have a simulator, embedded simulator in and fly them to get them to work, which then becomes, okay, now I have to learn how to use the simulator and it's crashing because it thinks there's terrain. There's all this stuff, but this one is dead easy. So I'm going to open it. It's made by Pilots Cafe, the same place that made that hold trainer. And I've got several things I can do. So I can do a VOR NV trainer. I can use it as an ILS trainer or this DME visualizer, which really isn't that great, but because we don't use DME that much anymore. But anyway, if I just pick the first one, the first thing I'll show you is this. Oops, I got a notification. Sorry, I guess I need to turn the notifications off. First thing I want to show you is on the left-hand side, you can move this to the right as well, that display, is VOR number 1, then you have a heading indicator, and then you have VOR number 2. And here you have a little toggle button. You can see that for here and here. And if I zoom in to this thing, like that, you can see there's 2 VORs now. So this one represents this VOR, and that one represents that one, right? And now to show you how easy it can be to use, first I can just take my finger on top of a VOR and just move it. So I can just move it like that, anywhere I want. I can move that one like that, move that one. You see the airplane that's there, I can move it, just drag it anywhere I want. All right, so that's the first thing. That makes it kind of easy to show like cross radials and this thing, that thing, whatever you want to show. In addition, this is easy to rotate as well. You don't need to use this. You just need to put your finger on this and move it left or right, and then it will do what it's going to do. You can also change, and you'll see the airplane's heading change. Right? On the second VOR, you can do the same thing. Right, and you also see how the to from flag works with the 90 degrees to the course. And also in this, you can change these. So first I'll just use a simulator for a second. This does have a little simulator in it. So if I do this and say fly, it doesn't care about terrain. There's no altitude. No altitude is necessary. And then what you can do is you can change the speed here with the speed lever. Down at the bottom, you can see the current speed. You can also cause a standard rate turn if you want, and it'll start turning. So you can kind of see what the needles would do, right? Kind of see what's going on. You can also cause there to be wind. So you see the windsock at the top. If I tap it on and I tap the bottom over here, I can change the wind to wherever I want as well. And now you can see the effect of wind on it as well, right? So it's all there. You can actually see the track changing. So this is useful, right? And it's $10 if it's $10, right? All right, so let's stop the stop flying and go back to the regular mode here, just tapping. I haven't done anything special. And at the very top, or these two where the toggles are here, we can change what these displays are. So we can change it to an HSI if we want to. So now we can find out how the HSI works. And we could change it to a fixed card ADF. So you can move the card if you want. And the next one is an RMI, which the heading indicator is embedded with this bearing pointer. This is what we G1000 call bearing pointer. And but it's an RMI, radio magnetic indicator. So as you turn, so if I cause this thing to fly again, and I take out, maybe we don't want so much wind, maybe no wind, kind of a lot of wind. And I do that, you can see the heading change right on the top, because sliding indicator. That's what an RMI does. A fixed card ADF doesn't do that. You have to change that yourself. So that's kind of all that's really kind of handy, right? So now if I go back, stop that, and we relaunch the app, there's a timer in there too, but I'll just relaunch it. And now what I'm going to do is do the ILS trainer. So the ILS trainer is here. It has an HSI. You can also toggle. In the same manner, you can use these toggle switches to be whatever. And if I move ahead, all I like to do is just drag this thing, like I say. Now we can see the airplane. We can see that it's on the center line. That's correct. And if I move this, you can see what happens, right? And then we can also do the same with the glide slope down here. And you can see the glide slope on the top HSI coming in and out, right? And then what I can do also in this sense, you can fly this too, but what I can do is I can demonstrate how an HSI can reverse sense. People don't think it can, but it can reverse sense only in two situations. If you have the back course dialed in for the front course and try to fly that, or if you have trying to fly a back course and you have the front course. So right now you're flying east, right? So east is the top. But what if, so, and you see if I fly left, fly right, it's correct, right? It gives me the right, fly left indications. But if I flip that around and do that, then we get reverse sensing, right? Because of the way the instrument works. So you can show that, you can say that in words, but when you see it and you can see the instrument rotate and see why it's happening, because the instrument's rotating, right? So that's why it's opposite. So that's very handy to have. And then the other thing we can have then is we relaunch the application again. We can do this thing, which I don't think is that valuable, but you can get the idea that you can move this around and see how the VME changes by slant range distance. So it's again, just drag it around. So it's an easy way to see, to explain, right? And this goes a long way. Some of this stuff goes a long way in trying to explain things, and it's very easy to use because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for things that are simple, that convey a lot of meaning, and that don't, if we haven't used it for a week, we're not going to forget how to use it, because things can be so complicated and better, maybe better, but not useful to us if we don't use the tool all the time, because we'd have to prepare too much for it. So there's that one. That's one we particularly like. Another one we like is this wind tunnel. we use in the class. You've seen it in our online stuff, and that's this thing. There's a free version of this, and for those of you who I keep harping on you, so I'm going to harp on you again. For those of you constantly looking for free, stop doing that. You really want to pay for what works because you want to have the support of the company. You want the upgrades if they come through. And this free stuff is for children, you know, or if you're going to use it one time. If you're going to use something one time, and it's like, you know, going to Harbor Freight and buying your tool, right? You don't expect it to work more than one time, right? And if you get something free, then don't expect it to keep working. And if it takes a long time to learn that tool, like video editing software, I'm not buying ever any free video editing software because I'm not going to put 10 cents of energy into that, because when it goes away, I'll have yet another big behemoth to crack, right? So I'll just learn how to use Final Cut Pro or whatever I'm going to use for that and pay $300 for it. All right, so anyway, this app there's a free version, but you can't do much with it. This is the paid version, so let's see what you can do. So I'll pick File down here, and I'm going to load up an airfoil. You can load up different things, but there's an airfoil. And then for the visualization, I'm going to turn on the stream. And now in the bottom of this thing, you can see there's lift, drag, and lift-drag ratio, right, at the bottom. And so what that is we'll let it stabilize there for a second, but you can see the stream going through top and bottom of the wing. Now we can actually change angle of attack. So we can change angle of attack by rotating the wing. I'll put two fingers, one here and like one here on the wing, and I'll just twist up like that. And now you can see the lift is increasing, and you can see that the air actually on top is accelerating, proving out the idea that as we accelerate air on top of a structure, the pressure will fall. And we'll go up till we get to a stall. Now you can begin to see the air starting to separate a little bit from the back. Go up a little bit more. Now you can see it separating more in the back, all the turbulent airflow. And eventually we'll get to a full stall, for aerodynamic stall. You can see then the lift will drop dramatically. And that's the end of it. So now the wing isn't flying anymore, or it's being pushed. Right? To install the wing, we can just bring it on back, and we'll get laminar flow again. So this thing is around $8 or $9. I don't know, something like that. Something like that. Yeah, huh?
You can draw like a flap and stuff like that.
Yeah, you can?
Yeah, I've done it.
Oh, I don't know how to do that.
So
So.
you go to,
Interact, the bottom, right?
mine's got a, if I go there, interact.
Yeah, yeah.
Draw a straight line.
Yeah, draw a straight line.
Right at the back, just draw a flap.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. Oh, you too smart. Okay. All right, he gets a smart ass. That's Tyler. He gets this. That's very good. I like that.
And a spoiler.
Oh, God, you could put a spoiler in there too, couldn't you? Jeez. Do all kinds of stuff. Look at
add
that.
to that is,
Yeah.
you put it on pressure mode, you can demonstrate the effects of
The center of pressure moving?
Well, rime ice on the front of the
Ah.
and you can see how it does or doesn't affect your lift. And then you can also take and pretend you're getting clear ice in the middle of the wing.
Ah, I see.
And you see how much more that actually disrupts.
Oh, I love this.
Your pressure on it. So you
I
have the pressure.
love
the pressure,
that shot.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
awesome.
I love it. That's really good. Okay, I didn't know that. For you two now, see? Sometimes your students educate you. I guess I gave them credit. I'm not usually good at giving them credit, but I just did. Okay, I just went over that in the class. I'm not terrible at giving credit where credit's due, and I just did it, and I feel so like disappointed with myself.
It's so good.
That was pretty fun, right? Okay. All right, let's get off that. Now everybody wants that, boy. I just made Apple some money today. Okay, let's look back at but those are good tools. The other tool we like is the FAR aim. This is ASA's FAR aim on the bottom right. And there's a couple reasons you'd want this. I'll show you some really good reasons for it. But one of the number one reasons is because they just send you updates for whatever reason, don't ever charge you for them. So as the FAR aim content changes, they just keep sending you the updates for free. So a lot of people will tab their FAR aims, but then after a year, it's sort of like you got to take all the tabs out, maybe move them. But if nothing really significantly changed, what you could do is you could use this to make sure that the thing still says the same thing because you know it's current, and still continue to use your older one because it's easier for you to reference maybe, right? That's possible use of it. The other thing we like about it, so let's open it first. So this is it. So it covers almost all the parts you'd ever want. So for example, part 61, this is where we live and breathe, right? And we could pick something, I don't know, something in the student pilot section, like here, solar requirements. And then you can, if you can pinch and zoom that, or you can do that and see it full screen. You can also step through the bottom right. You can step down here through page up, page down through the regulations, which is fine. But it's an easy way to get around. You can also bookmark things in here as well. You can do that, which up there, you've got a bookmark tool at the top right. You can highlight things if you want. The other thing, though, that's in the paper version of ASA, and it's also here, but it's not obvious that it's here, is this thing called Tools at the top. So it's right here. And if you tap that, I'll show you something kind of nice. You can study by certificate, the second one down. You can also go directly to your highlights or to your bookmarks. Right? So, and you can also search this too. That's another handy feature they have to, if you know what the word is or the phrase is and you know it exists, you search it, it will find it. Right? So, but study by certificate is very cool because what you can do is say, you're a private pilot, you're my private pilot student, what regulations and parts of the AIM should I be reading? If you do that, it only brings up those sections that are relevant to you as a private pilot. Right? So that's really handy because you can sort of constrain the students' worry about this big giant far aim, right? So it's for the remote pilot, it's for sport pilots, for everything. So you can even check like the sport pilot what they need to know, right? So so I think that's really handy. Good feature of the book. And again, I like the fact that you can search for your highlights because obviously you put the highlights in for a reason. And if you're struggling on a test or struggling for something, you can just scroll through your highlights. And you're probably going to find what you need there, even if you can't remember where it's at. So we love this app. And again, I don't know why they update it for free, but we're not going to tell them anything about that, right? But that they do. And I think that's something really worth having. It's around $10. So it's not $100. It's around $10, and it's updated, as far as I know, for as long as you own it. So not a bad gig there, right, fellers? Okay, let's look at page 2. Page 2. We also have Explain Everything, EDU. It used to be a little more useful than it is today. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this app, but it allows you to put in a PDF into it, and you can annotate on it, or you can share it with other people who have Anywhere EDU. You can just log on to the same site, and you can see it too. So you could put this document here, like this one, and then I could annotate it, and you could see it in the classroom if you had the same thing. Right? So that used to be a little more valuable to us than it is now, but not so much anymore. So that's all I really want. You can see the annotation tools that are available, over here, like change to blue, I suppose we want, that kind of thing. I'll show you what we use instead now. All right, so let's look. The next thing we have, of all things, you know what I think about these E6Bs, right? Well, if it's not bad enough that you have a real physical one, here's an electronic one, right? But very useful if you got to teach your student this thing. So here you have a fully functional E6B that you can actually rotate. You can actually zoom in on the thing if you want to, like over on this section. I want to zoom up on that. You can, yeah, kind of like that, yeah. Then you can also have the wind side. Don't forget, you got that too. And you can slide the background. You can put a point over there, and you can rotate this thing around. So you do have this as an ability, right? Yes. You can zoom her in by, so you don't have to put on your goggles. So you don't have to put on your damn spectacles, right?
I don't need to buy a big one now.
Yeah, you guys use this one, right? And you can project this. Like right now, we're projecting it up to a 55 or 60-inch monitor, and easy for the class to see, right? In the back, you can see it, right? So it takes away, used to you had to have this big, giant wooden thing made by Jepson, or this, I don't know, it must have been like $500 for this thing, and you had to put it together, and then you get up there and you rotate it, So now we can just put it on this And it had a piece of plastic you had to put a big old pencil mark on, right?
Right.
And then you rotate that around and move the thing. I got to work out when you did that. Right? They should make those as new exercise machine, the E6P exercise machine, right? That'd be funny. All right, so you can do that. They also have a little holding pattern thing, which I've not used before, so I can't really show you what that's like. But there you go. I showed you the main thing. Okay, page 2. The third thing is X-plane. So we can use X-plane to demonstrate flying. So it's not going to be precise flying, but you can demonstrate like what something would look like. You might be able to, because you can just hold it in your hand, say where you want to depart from. In a second. Did you know? Loading. Hold the device comfortably and tap the screen to begin. Can you hold an iPad comfortably? So you can move this way, descend. You get the idea. You can demonstrate things. I know you got all excited over that. All excited. Next one is the TXI trainer. This is Garmin's latest avionics for the G1000. So we can say piston single. Start. TXI by Garmin. About 25 bucks. Here it is. And then continue. And then you've got it. You can just start using it. You can use it as if you had it. You can pinch and zoom on that thing if you want. You can go to weather, you can go to flight plan, terrain, you can do all of her. So just like that, you also have a simulator. So over here, you can change the altitudes and fly it. It's got a full-on database in it. You can change the airspeed, all that. So this is good for training, right? Imagine weather days. We have weather days, and we need to explain some features of we can take a non-revenue day into a revenue day, right? So, and again, about 25 bucks, I think. Not too bad. Okay, next thing. So we getting close on time. This is weight and balance tool. We don't really use that anymore. I'll show you what, because we use the ForeFlight for that. This is instrument prepware, which you've already seen for the study. You've seen it for the CFI. This is Dauntless Ride Ready. Again, Ride Ready is their oral question stuff for IFR. Ride Ready for multi. There's another. This is actually the oral exam guide written by Michael Hayes, who writes all of them for ASA, and this is the instrument one. 2 here to go through. 3, Cloud Ahoy. I can't really show you that because it's an app you use in flight to record the flight and debrief it, but it's an exceptional app. Chuck Shavit owns that company and done really great things with it. This one I will show you. This is C12 Foreman. This is an app that's written by Steve Kleinman, who's here at Palo Alto Airport, and he was the previous chief technical officer for NetApps. And so when he left NetApps, he bought a TBM 850, which is a $3 million airplane, turboprop. And when he got it, he was going through the manual, and he was saying, like, why in the world do we have paper manuals? This doesn't make any sense. I'm prone to make errors and all kinds of shit. So he basically made all of the TBM's performance charts digitally, and then created an app by which you can just say where you're taking off from and where you're going, and it would calculate everything you needed in that, including risk management. And so then it just spits out, it pulls in all the relative METARs, whatever it needs, forecast, winds aloft, everything, and the right manual, the TBM. And so now Sakata uses it as part of TBM's package and training. So he decided to do it for the 172. And then we have another student here, is one of my students, Anawat. And Anawat is, he's the reason you have internet caching. When your page comes up quickly, that's him. That's what he did his PhD on in USC. And he worked with Steve Klein, his company, the NetApps, and they mutually then made a Baron version of this because Anawat owns a Baron, right? So he said, I want that for my Baron, and I'll just take it on and do it. So if we open the thing, then this is free, by the way. You don't have to pay anything for this because Steve's a nice guy. There's your user licensing agreement. But anyway, you can go to flight performance. I guess I got to do the user. And then if you put where you're going, where you're coming, it calculates everything for you, right? So I won't go through the steps, but you can see all the detail there. And there's a weight and balance in there as well here. Check management. You can then say what kind of flight is it? Is there a convective sigmet? The autopilot's kind of not operating. Human factors, I'm flying after work, and the runway is really short or long, and you sort of get the risk assessment as you go on a color code there. So that's not a bad way to evaluate as a first pass on risk analysis, right? And this is free to you. It's Cessna 172. It's called C172 Performance. All right, so we use that. And then, of all things, for instrument flying, I use this next thing to demonstrate to you. So are you aware, or you should be, this is a rhetorical question for those of you at home listening. Are you aware that that ForeFlight now you can purchase a Jepson subscription? And so then I tell my students, you should use the Jepson charts. If you're going to fly with me, you don't have to, but I would highly recommend you do. And the reason for it is because Jepson forces everything into a specific standard format. If you fly around the world, or any other, I used to fly in England, and so we had AIRAD charts, which are the national charts. And if I bring up an AIRAD chart now, you won't know how to use it. You'll recognize things, but you won't instantly know how to use it. So this thing is called sim plates, this thing. And if I just pick view plates, and I pick like England, Great Britain, I'll show you. When I pick, okay, Aberdeen Airport works okay. Let's pick the localizer, runway 34, and it will load it. Here's what it looks like. Some of it easy to understand, some of it not. Let's look at another one here for like another country. Like let's look at the one for French Guiana. There's a procedure for this airport. So what Jepson does is it takes all of these and forces it into one format. It takes the data and puts it into a format you can recognize and use. That's why you want to use them. Outside of they display the data better. So now while we're on that topic, so that's something for fun, but it's a way if you're double eye or you demonstrate something. Let's go over here and look at the one app that's not in here, which is our ForeFlight app, and show you a couple things. So let's go to the map section here. Okay. So what I want to show you is a couple things. One is the difference between the Jepson and the NACO charts. So we'll pick plates here. And I'm going to show you the plate for Mesa Gateway in Phoenix. Okay, I'm going to show you that as a FAA chart. So let's see if I can do it. This one. So this, and let me rotate it so that we can kind of see it better. So here's the chart for Mesa Gateway. So when we go down there and we do training for Transpac, they don't seem to know how to do anything other than vectored approaches. So we give them a pilot navigation approach, and I clear them here to the Willie VOR, if you can see the Willie VOR. And I say cross Willie at 4,500 cleared for the ILS runway 30 center. And so inevitably they screw this up. And one of the reasons they screw it up is because they immediately go see Willie and they go to the profile view down here and they start descending the 3,700 feet. What's maybe not obvious because it's so cluttered is there's a feeder route right there. It says 4,400 feet to Snow, 122's. And that is the track from Willie to the initial approach fix, which is Snow here. So then you go like, well, isn't that interesting? Snow, which is here, I should say. So now, and you see there's a restricted area over here and all the restricted area names are there. All right, so now you've seen that, right? So now let's look at the same chart, the way Jepson presents it. Here's the Jepson chart of the same thing. First, you can see there's a feeder route really clearly. It's that big arrow right there. And you see all the clutter's been removed. All those restricted area stuff, all those cross radials are gone, right? So it's an easier chart to read, way easier in this case. Okay, there's an expense to that, but again, oh, by the way, Jepson charts don't show an expiration date on them. The expiration date is when a new chart is issued. FA charts have an expiration date printed on the side, so the side panel. So FA charts will have an expiration date on them. Oops, that's the wrong one.
The Jeff charts do well is they show step down.
They do. They show step down fixes as well. Yep. Let me just pick in here.
The other thing, don't they always have climb gradient on the back if you need that?
Yes, there's a lot of good features. They also present the alternate airports regardless of whether they're standard or not. Oops, that's that. Okay, so we're not worried with that. Now, what I also wanted to show you with ForeFlight is there's a really cool feature for you as a CFI. And that is there's a section in here called Documents, which is at the bottom. So it's right here for those of you right there, if you can see that. And I'm going to press that. And if I go back here to the main thing, all the way back to where it would normally show you, they have FAA information here that they've already preloaded, or you can download. You can download flight plans or manuals or whatever you want. Jepson has their guides to using the charts in there, all that. But if you go to ForeFlight, your subscription, and you go to the website and log in on the web, not on the device, but on the web, you'll be able to sync a Dropbox account to here. So you can put something or things in Dropbox, and that will appear in ForeFlight. So for example, for those of you who have been through our course before, or some of you who purchased CFI Essentials, that's in a Dropbox. And you can put it in your own Dropbox, whatever you want. And you see that I have done that. I have synced my Dropbox to our CFI Essentials. And if I tap that, this is what you would have. And if I go to our stuff, for example, CFI Bootcamp authored products over here, right down here, and I pick something like airspace flashcards, and I tap it, well, I can open it up, immediately start using it. I can also annotate this thing while I'm teaching it to you. So there's an annotation tool, right? It's really handy to be able to teach from this, right? So I can clear the annotations. You can also change you can put some text in there if you want to, shapes. So, and those annotations would stay if you don't clear them. But the idea is that as you're teaching, you can just use ForeFlight, which you have anyway, and use that, right? And if you had a Dropbox that you personally created that had your custom curated stuff into, you could share that Dropbox with your student and they could drag it into their ForeFlight as well and sync to that. So anytime you drop something new into there, you said, I dropped a new AC in there for you to look at, they'll have it, right? So it's a very powerful tool. And that's why we don't use some of the apps that I showed you before, because now we can use this tool a little bit more powerfully, right? All right. So let's look at a few more things here, and then we'll be done. Okay, so you got a little bit of a crowd here going. Let me see what the chat is here. Okay, so one comment from AW to everyone, which seems like okay. It says, the props and governors and electricals not found in the App Store. If you search on the iPhone, some are listed, filtered as iPad only. So yes, some are iPad only. So that's a good comment there. Okay, now let's move on to this thing. So I want to tell you that this is the one we're in now. I just could catch you up with what we're doing. September 26th, this is more a CFI thing. So, I mean, some of you log in and you're not CFIs, which is fine, from like Advantage, other flight schools. But this next one is specifically for CFIs, and it's how to create a lesson plan that will work with commercially available syllabus. So that means that we talk about it here in class, but in general, the lesson plans that you're going to be creating are for the examiner and for your students, sort of. And if you take 15 minutes, so if your commercial syllabus says do steep turn, slow flight, and 2 stalls, and then a round reference maneuver, and you brief all those with the lesson plans that we use and other people use, it'll take an hour and a half to do that, and you won't even get to fly. So you have to have something that takes that commercial syllabus and makes it usable, and that's what we're going to be showing you how to create. The up-and-coming classes, October 5th to 11th is the next initial CFI. It's in Opelika. It's going to be live streamed to the Palo Alto classroom. So there's a big old monitor in here. You can see, I guess you guys can make good opportunity to see. The big old monitor in here, and that's going to be live streamed to that, along with being able to see people from each class. There's a double I class next week, Monday. There's a CF double I class from the 12th to the 14th in Opelika and Palo Alto. And there's a new thing called CFI Insights. That's 5 hours of deep content, things like marketing for CFIs, things like deep dives into commercial maneuvers, right? Those kind of things. I have a syllabus which we will send you later. And that's what's coming up, just so you know. That book did get released. This is now out there. It's at full price now, so sorry for those of you who didn't get it. But that's What to Say book. It's what to say for every single flight maneuver. All right, so let's start wrapping it up here on this side. So I wanted to, Ika. Hi, Ika from Germany. He was in our class, live streamed into the Miami class last month. So he's coming in, when's he coming? He's coming in December 15th to do flight training there. So everything, by the way, so just catch up on the status of things, right? You can see inside of our Palo Alto classroom that we have to wear facial coverings in the buildings and in the airplanes the whole time that we're here. So I'll close this door just for a second. So in Miami, we don't have to do that. We do have to do that when we can't maintain 6 foot distance. But a classroom is big enough to where we don't really have to do that. So that's kind of handy. People can do it if they want, but they don't need to. And in the airplanes, you still need to. And in public, you have to. So that's the bit on that. Pilot examiner availability is still good. It's better in Miami, and it's still good in Palo Alto. We have 3 examiners that we use. One is finally starting doing testing again. So this was Mike Trout in Sacramento we had used. And he's now okay with doing some tests. He wasn't there before. We used Rich Batcholder up in Concord. Good success with Rich. And Vince Nastro and Tracy, along with others. So and we're having okay time on that. In Miami, we use Emil, and we use Sven Sampson, Brooks Black, and we generally have really good availability with Emil. We can get a test on short notice. So if you're somewhere else and you're running out of time, or you can't get a test, like we got poor Jacob here, Jesus. So I think Jacob might be on the call, might be here. Jacob Bendick is a college kid, student, I should say, student, and he's been trying to get this commercial test done for like a month and a half. He attended our CFI class last time, but without having done his commercial because it was like going to be scheduled that Saturday. And so it gets canceled. And then the smoke comes and it gets canceled again. He's got to fly down to Paso Robles to get it done. And then he takes off and tries to do it the other day. I think it's this week. But if he come to Miami, I could have had it done in a week. But the issue is he's in school, so he can't just take off school for a week, right? But if you're in that kind of position and you come to either, if it's not smoky out, and you can see we don't have any smoke now, to Palo Alto or Miami, we can get you done. But we have to have enough notice, right? And also, we can't do that unless we can't recommend you for a test if you're not taking our full-on course and full-on flying. We can't recommend you for it. We won't do that. So, but if you just need something from out of the area and you want to come and do some prep with us, we can probably help you with that. But you'd already have to be recommended. So that's that. Or you finish enough stuff with us so we can recommend you. I guess we could do that. So, okay, so I wanted to say thanks for attending. We record all the power hours, and for those of you new, every week we have one. Sometimes they're very technical ones. They'll get an email with a link to the previous one so you can watch them all. We did one as a really deep dive on 8-son pylons. And we've done others with very, very specific purposes for flying, right? And we also did a fun one. We've done some fun ones too. I'm going to show this class Airman Etiquette here in just a little bit, which is our new, not a book we've had, which is, we usually give that out as free when people buy shit from us, but it's the underwritten rules of aviation. Like, you hear things like, hey, don't push on the spinner, right? And then you as the poor student go, oh shit, I pushed on the spinner. What's that mean? And then all the people in the airport, shaking their thing and say, don't push on that fucking spinner like that, So you go, and then you go looking like, where does it say don't push on the spinner and into the FAA resources or anything I've ever been told? How could I know that? Well, that's part of these little underwritten rules we've got, right? So there's a book called Airman Etiquette, which we have on that, which we give to flight schools and other things, and it's got that stuff in it. And I think we'll take, right now we're on the break, so in a minute, 10-minute break, and we'll do that. So I'm going to log off and say thanks for attending again, and you got to peek in at the class and see how everything's going here. Beautiful Palo Alto. We're doing some aerobatics now. They're aerobatics. There you go. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Next Saturday. I'll be in Miami tomorrow. So tomorrow sometime. Auf Wiedersehen. Tschüss.